Good day, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the Testing Planet. This is all about the news today, and what a wonderful episode we have for you. This is the practitioner. If I can get my words out, I'll say that again. This is the practitioner, and we are here today to have a wonderful discussion about communities of practice. I'm Simon Tomes. I'm a white male, and I'm wearing glasses and a blue t-shirt, and my pronouns are he, him. Handing over to AJ in the south of England.
Hi there, I'm AJ. I am a Scottish blonde-haired with curls, blue eyes, very bubbly person with a jumper on. And sometimes I might hold a banana up in the air. Yeah.
And over to Christine in Berlin.
Hi there, my name is Christine. I'm a white female with blonde hair. I'm wearing purple glasses. My pronouns are she, her.
Wonderful. Well, folks, we've got a show for you today. We have got a lot of information to get through, some thoughts and ideas to discuss about some important polls that we put out to the community. So we have put out 4 polls related to the communities of practice. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to jump straight in with poll number 1. We're going to share the results with you of what we got coming in thick and fast from the community. We're going to share our thoughts and comments and bring in some commentary from the community as it happens right now. So poll number 1 is does your organization have a testing community of practice? So we gave 2 options. You could either say yes or you could say no. Does your organization have a testing community of practice? Okay, so results coming in. We saw on one poll that 58% of respondents, so that's 273 people, shared that they do have a testing community of practice, and 42% say they don't. We also have other information from some other polls, roughly 60% of people saying they don't, and 40% saying they do, and similar on another poll as well. So yeah, fascinating results there. AJ, in the south of England, what are your initial thoughts about this poll?
First of all, I love how many people answered and the comments that I saw in different threads, LinkedIn, for example, because I get notifications, which is quite good. I liked a lot of the sub themes that came out of it. That was really interesting. And I liked that the conversation started appearing in other areas and people were reposting. So it was really good to have that conversation because it brought in other skill sets, like product managers were commenting, engineering managers, and people that weren't even in tech were getting into that conversation. So it was a really good poll to see, actually. It brought a lot of people together.
Wonderful. And what are your thoughts around the split? So let's take the one where it's 58% people say they do have a testing community of practice and 42% say no. Were you surprised by those results?
I wouldn't say surprised. I think because context is important, some people will have a community of practice where they talk about testing, but it's not labeled a testing community of practice. For example, a quality roundtable or a quality community practice, or just a COP, it's called sometimes. So I think sometimes things are lost in translation, and the polls that I've seen are interacted with by people all over the world. So it might just be that they call it something different.
Yeah, interesting. Absolutely. And Christine, over in Berlin, what's your initial reaction to this poll?
I was quite surprised because I experienced more that I don't have a community of practice in a lot of the startups I ever worked, but I've been also around in this area a lot. So I was quite surprised how many people enjoy and also do a community of practice because I find it also so important, like sharing, but I also like, yes, it might have been lost in translation, maybe also for me sometimes, because we definitely have like tech talks, but then not specifically for testing. But I definitely found it very good. And it's important because we need these communities and to share the knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting to see some commentary coming in from the community, a mixture of folks kind of sharing how often they meet. And we get onto that in a little bit in another poll that we asked. And also just some folks sharing. So Stefan sharing the organization has no testers. So Unsure what to read into that, whether that means no testing community of practice, but perhaps a wider community of practice, such as Lease Pass. They shared, we don't have a testing COP, but rather a quality circle, which includes all kinds of people from the product engineering department and its different teams. So QAs, developers, product managers, support engineers, DevOps, etc. And this was really cool. The goal of the circle is to discuss different software quality related issues and opportunities, work on the quality strategy and roadmap, vent a bit, nice, about current problems, and take topics and ideas back to the teams. Since quality is the responsibility of everyone, this is what we are doing, including everyone. Also making sure that people don't only think software quality equals bugs, but rather software quality consists of so many other things that we can all influence and change. Fantastic stuff there from Liz.
I think that's an ideal summary of a community of practice. You've got your domain, so that's wherever you share a concern. People wanting to learn how to do things better, learning from each other's mistakes, giving ideas, innovation, actions, and then that interaction regularly, that's what makes it that kind of community. I think that's a really good example from Liz.
Yeah, absolutely. And Christine in Berlin, any other commentary from the community that you're seeing coming in that you'd like to share?
I joined like the lunch breaks, I think that was called, the learn and lunch, because I believe having a quick bite or a coffee and learning something together is an amazing thing. I think Stefan also shared this, I'm not sure. And it's just, it shows, and I think AJ also summarized that as well. It's quality is for everybody, but it's just one part of the big picture. And this is how we do it in companies. Everybody is responsible, and if we do this in the shared way, that's the best approach for this, I find.
Yeah, wonderful. And AJ, there was a question here from Brian Hollister that's just coming through. What are some activities that your community of practice do? I thought that was a great question.
So community of practices that I've been in before and currently, for example, 1 week or every 2 weeks, depending on the cycle, a team will innovate or show an proof of concept to say, excuse me, we've got this current tool. This is how we think we can improve it, or this will save us this much money if we move to this. We'd love your ideas, like your hive mind. What do you think? Or again, it's not so much about tools, it's more about individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And that for me is what makes community of practices work. It's about the people. So if they happen to save money, that's great. If there's a value being added to the business, that's great. But the value to the people is equally as important. So just sometimes having that hour or 2 hours where you can do live testing together, exploratory testing, the value you get from that is brilliant sometimes, especially with lunches and learns. I've had sessions where people have never done mobile testing before, and we've just invited them in and shown them how to do it native, how to like look at logs, things you would never think that you could do with mobile testing. So there's always something that's inspiring to other people or something that someone's passionate about. And the more niche, the better sometimes, because it can spark an interest. And where one individual thinks they're the only one that cares about this, they might then find 100 people actually care as well. So that the individuals is what really makes it, those sessions.
I think also to add to this is also especially what you said, like we especially are in this quality mind, we know how to do mobile testing, we know how to look at these logs, but some other people just always wonder, how do we find this? And when you share this in a session, it's so interesting to also see that's where you got this from. And then I can do this as well, especially when it comes to bug reporting, when you sometimes ask back, okay, which actually environment were you on? And they're always like, why do you even ask this? But in a show and tell, when you show that we actually have multiple environments or different consoles, it's just such a interesting just to see the other worlds. You learn a little bit more of their personas and understand them more, and they learn more about ours as well. And I love that.
Yeah, I love the same. I love seeing when joy is sparked and curiosity is triggered in someone, and you can see the cogs going, and they're like, I wonder if I could do this myself, and I wonder if I could use that here. I love seeing that. And even the people who are just very solemn and like they're thinking about something and they're just going, interesting. I love those people as well.
Absolutely. And it's great when that energy exists and there's that motivation to keep going. There's enough momentum from a good number of people. And we've just had some breaking news coming in, both from Fiona and Rahul. And it looks like both of them have had experiences where sometimes they struggle to keep the momentum. So Fiona is sharing that despite my attempts in the past to kick such a thing up, everyone just gets far too busy, and we end up with any such attempt failing again. We tried guilds too, but that was too much. And Rahul also sharing that they struggle a little bit as well. My org has such a thing. I contribute actively to it. However, I don't see much people excited about it. It feels like one more meeting that they have to join. So yeah, Rahul is asking if you have any tips or stuff on how to revive energy at a large scale. They'd love to know. Christine, feel free to jump in on that one.
Well, I would say I have a hot deal for this. What I love are innovative formats. So, like we know the show and tell and the webinar and the coding dojos, but what I love, and I tried that out last time, is talking about industry memes. I think that was very interesting, like as a icebreaker, because in the end, yes, it is another meeting and yes, it's another time, but if you make it funny and interesting and involving, people come back because they know, okay, for the first 5 minutes, I actually have a laugh, and because this sets the scene, and then through that you spark their engagement. And it has to be different formats. And yes, you have to also see, you could do a game night to basically have quizzes, because it's about also what different aspects are there. Make a trivia game night, something like this. What I liked, we had last time it's called, I hope I can say that here, night. So basically we shared our biggest failures and some kind of thing, but we made it funny. We laughed about it, and this was just such, because it's a binding experience and it's a different format. Because yes, and we have show and tells over and over and over again. They are valuable, but at some point you just get so used to it that you have to be creative and changing your format.
Absolutely, Christine. That's wonderful advice. And just to add to that, certainly that's an approach we take at Ministry of Testing, is to keep things light. We are talking about serious topics and very important topics, yet there has to be that element of fun and ridiculousness, and be able to kind of like reflect on some of the absurd things that we have to experience as testing, QA, and quality engineering professionals. As a community of practice for those professionals, we do try and keep things light, and that's a wonderful reminder, Christine. Any other advice there as well, AJ?
Just on Rahul's question, which is a really great one, because I think a lot of people encounter that, is understanding the end user, similar to what we do in testing. Like, what does the end user want? What do they need? What do they like? And making it accessible. Some feature teams or tribes, or wherever the format is, they won't always have the time, and they can't prioritize doing a community of practice in a live session. So are there ways you can make it accessible to them? Can you have a Slack or Teams thread or a channel that's just literally for community of practice interaction? So you can have a bug hunt, make it a competition, gamify it, and then those people could nip in and out of those conversations as and when they have the bandwidth or the capacity. Because again, people can be maybe not so busy, but they've got so much other things going on, it's just not in their headspace at the moment. And having that flexibility, like a community, means that they always feel welcome. They don't have to participate in every session to be part of that group. They can make it comfortable for them, and based on whatever their needs are. I think accessibility is a big part of being in a community. And then again, like Christine said, gamification. The most successful community practice sessions I've been part of have been gamified, because amazingly in engineering and tech, we have egos, no matter how big or small they are. And there's nothing better than a bit of competition for some people. Innovation and competition is a real driver of some engineers, even if it's offline, like in a channel. I've done one for Lego before, and the amount of people that just put in so much effort just for this little bit of Lego. It wasn't anything expensive, but it was so they could claim it. And then each competition, there was a different minifigure. And whoever got, like, people were trying to get a specific one. So if we had a unicorn that week, for example, the engagement just increased because everyone wanted this blue unicorn because they hadn't seen it before. Little silly things. It just became, and then people would build emojis of that like figure and put it in the Slack and have it on their title as like a little bit of a trophy. So there's lots of different things that you can do.
I love the Lego game. That sounds brilliant. Absolutely.
And it's so easy to adopt and so easy to implement. But gamifying is like when I could gamify my life and the chores and all the other things, it's more fun. And it brings, especially if we gamify it together. And like you said, I love the idea of having that little unicorn or like different Lego ones, which are easy accessible, but they can put it beside them or in Slack and then have it as a little trophy. I love that one. I will take that. I will steal that idea.
My coveted one is a Batgirl with purple hair. She's currently by my bed, but that's my favorite for the best bug found that month.
Oh, nice. Congrats on the best bug find. That's wicked.
Quite an achievement.
I love it. Okay, folks, I think it's time for us to move on to our second poll. So we asked, how often do you meet with an internal testing community of practice? So we gave 4 options, weekly, monthly, quarterly, or longer, or never. And we've had, a good number of results coming in. So let's focus on, let's go from bottom to top, although it's quite an even spread. So we had 20% of respondents sharing that they meet quarterly or longer. We had 24% say they meet monthly. We then had 27%, so just over a quarter of respondents saying they never meet as an internal testing community of practice. So I have a slight tear when I hear that or read that. And then we had 29% of respondents saying that they meet weekly. So Christine, over in Berlin, what's your initial reaction to these results?
Yeah, a tear I think comes down my eye as well. It's like the never one, the number shocked me because especially it's so close to the weekly one. It's a sad story. I hope we can change that. The question is always again, is it never maybe mean because we do everything digital? Maybe they don't meet in person and they just are all like what AJ suggested in a Slack channel, and that's why they don't meet directly. That's my hope right now, my spark in the sky that maybe that's what it means. I was very impressed by weekly because yes, that would be awesome to do it weekly. I don't think I ever achieved that, but I really like that idea, and I'm glad to see that weekly is really that high top on the polls.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And AJ, what's your initial thoughts about the results?
Very similar. I think that they may not call it testing community. It might just be tech community or engineering community. They don't see themselves as individual testers. Everyone's sharing the quality or testing aspects. The one that did make me a little bit sad was the never. 27% is a lot. And I can understand why some might be quarterly or longer, depending on how big the domain is. So in my last place, we used to have 2 large domains. So we'd have one quarterly of both the domains with testers, and then one every 2 weeks with our own personal domain. But we had still weekly community to practice with the Olive Tech. That was, again, optional. So it's trial and error depending on what works best for the individuals in the company. One of the technical testing communities to practice in is quarterly, but that's because there's just so many members. There's 6,000, and it's not feasible to have individuals be seen or heard in a more regular session. So if it's a set date and time and theme, people who actually want to engage with that theme can then get together, and people who aren't that interested will watch the recording later, that type of thing.
Yeah. And it's that, I think, sort of amplifying both of your points there around like the definition of meeting. Like if it is just, and I say just because I think this is really important, if it's some, asynchronous communication is a form of meeting, right? Like if people meet in those terms, that's wonderful. To a full-blown mega internal conferences that we see a number of perhaps larger companies running, say quarterly we see this as Ministry Testing as a community. They're setting up their big quarterly get-togethers and bringing people together and bringing outside speakers in. There's such variety from asynchronous chat to like internal conference and so much in between that. I guess perhaps the interpretation of what meet means and how often is open to interpretation. Yeah, I'm with you, Christine, and yourself, AJ, with the disappointment of never. It's like let's encourage folks, and hopefully as part of this session and the rest of the testing planet on communities of practice, that we can create some sparks in people really go for it. And I really feel there is value, particularly when someone is not in, say, a people leadership position, like an official management role or leadership role. If they can get that confidence and support from their leadership team or senior leadership team to kickstart an initiative that starts to, help people gather, to help people start sharing information about their practice and the things they do and the way they can help each other out, I think that really benefits that individual and the individuals around them, because they're demonstrating leadership, they're demonstrating helping kind of support the growth of others. And certainly if someone is looking to get into a leadership position, that's a great way in to demonstrate. I imagine when I used to run reviews for some of my team, you'd ask questions about and I don't use the word extracurricular because it should just be core. I think it's when it gets separated from your role, that's when I think it gets complicated, because it can, as some people have suggested on the comments, that it can be just another meeting. Whereas I think the opportunity there is for people to step into leadership positions before they officially become a people manager. So it's a great way for your career growth to help people gather and come together and share.
I think one of the other factors, though, is the individual testers themselves. If you have a sprint team or tribe, for example, and there's between 4 and 6 software developers and one tester, and they happen to have a meeting that clashes with your slot, what you might find is a lot of testers will give up that community of practice session so they can be with their team and support their team. And you wouldn't see the engineers doing that. You wouldn't see the majority give up their slot for the tester. And I think that's something I've seen quite a lot in different companies, where because they feel responsible for quality, they're more passionate than some other people maybe, they give up some joy themselves to make sure they're there for other people. And I see that a lot in the testing community, because there's a lot of empathy there. And I think maybe that could be a detracting factor from people being able to participate. They forget to put their own oxygen mask on first and look after themselves. Yeah.
I think in that one, it's also important that the people who are the leaders have to also ensure that people go there. I had a CTO once who was quite flux about how he saw quality, and I know he didn't, but he mentioned these things towards the other developers, and I basically had to set him aside. Like, you are their role model. You cannot talk so like easy about quality. We all know, we all have a quality mindset, and you have to show that as well. And he changed that, and it was very interesting that I think a week later or 2 weeks later, we had actually a specific talk about testing, and all of a sudden all the developers were there. It was very fascinating, because it just showed that you have role models, and you have to also get them to be part of these test communities of practice as well, because then they also show, here it is good to go there. You can exchange, because yes, you might be not seeing this as also the marketeers. I also believe inviting other people specifically, talk specifically to them, join us, and also say, present. You get also 10 minutes. Present us how you see these things when it's specifically about testing. Tell us from your marketeer perspective, what are you actually pay attention to, because we're working all on the same product. And it's but I get that with a passion, because I'm very passionate about quality, and I'm always talking about that very loud and very passionate everywhere. But I think very, very important in the community of practice is this belonging and this shared passion, because sometimes you feel like am I the only one who talks about this? And then you sit there and you actually see, like what you said with the Spark inspiring, it's also that people see that they actually can be all passionate about it, just maybe not talk about this because there is no time, or there is maybe like so many things, so many other sprints, releases, which are always get us focused on other things. And it's just nice to have this belonging. And I love these communities, and I don't have them always internally. I most of the time have them externally, but I still love them, because also the shared with other people from other industries gives me also so much back as well.
Loving it. That's great, Christine. And we've got some commentary coming in from the community. So just on this particular poll, so Mirza is sharing that we have a weekly meeting where us QAs meet to share knowledge and updates. Very cool. Mahati shares monthly and quarterly, because some meetups take place every month and a few once in a quarter. Mahati also shares that I have attended impromptu ones. Oh, nice. Just because I like the person and the topic was of interest to me. Very cool. And a final one from Alan. Spring and fall, we tend to have a series of meetings to talk about what we are testing and how. We've done book clubs and discussed the vocabulary of testing in our business. Very cool. It depends on who is facilitating the topic on whether we are going to apply a technique or tool. Interesting. Any thoughts on those comments, AJ in the south of England?
The comment on depending on who is presenting, that ties into influence. So sometimes you get influencers in the testing community that will draw people in to that conversation. Back in 2016, 17, the people I followed in the industry, because I was still learning, people like Dan Ashby, Abby Bangser, Ash Winter, lots of other people. And I just found them fascinating. So if I knew they were at an event locally, I would make the effort to travel and be part of that community event because I wanted to learn from them. I wanted to be part of that interaction. And also knowing that other people wanted to learn from them as well, maybe may have similar interests. So that drew me in. Normally specific tools, it depends on who's presenting them. Like Maria Drake talking about Grafana, I'd find that much more interactive because she's a visual explainer than someone who's just showing slides on YouTube. So again, it depends on the context as well. That's a really good point on in who's presenting or who's doing the conversational or leading the conversation can make a big difference.
Absolutely. Christine, any further thoughts on this particular topic?
Yeah, I definitely agree on this topic that it is a factor of multiple things. It's the visual, it's the audio, it's also like maybe they're like not touchy things, but basically because for you had like trophies which you can touch basically. It makes a change if you want to participate in that, especially if you have to travel. Yes, if you see a name A you know already, or B you want to get to know, or you just find interesting, it's definitely increasing that. But it should still not take away from these communities where you maybe don't have like the big influences. Then you have to always see, I believe communities it's a living breathing organism, so the community managers also have to put in the effort and maybe set accountability groups or buddy groups, because sometimes, and I have to say that when I started out going also in one of the bigger companies, when I went there I felt a little shy maybe also to go there or say something as well, and having afterwards also the host has to be pay attention if somebody maybe didn't say anything, talk to them afterwards as well and see, okay, what maybe format did not work for you, or maybe did you just need a little bit introduction before? Because I also been to communities of practice where you had 15 minutes before like an intro, where you basically, if anybody comes there for the first time, can meet the host, can ask some questions how the format is, because you don't want to normally disturb the flow. So these are important things for the host. Check how you set it up. Do you have a way of connecting with the people? Do you have to set up buddy system, emails maybe also, or Slack messages, some automated stuff that people stay engaged, but also that people feel involved. We all want to share our knowledge and want to contribute. So it's also important to give these ways, both ways in a way. And that's for me a very, very important part for the host, for the community manager, to have this a living and breathing thing which is evolving and growing and become different in different ways.
Yeah, I agree. I think how the event is managed and publicized and how information is shared is equally as important as whoever might be a guest that week. I'll give you an example. The Ministry of Testing in Athens, when I first saw the posting for that, for the meetup, I was like, this looks amazing. It's Ministry of Testing on the beach. And then I started seeing the promos on Instagram. And I was like, they put so much effort. You can tell they're really passionate and care. I even started going, maybe I should look at flights. And then I started looking, should I go to Athens for this meetup? It looks amazing. And then seeing the pictures afterwards, I definitely had FOMO. I was like, oh, I really wish I'd just gone now. Even though it'd be going all that way just for a meetup. I thought they all looked like they had such a great time. And it just looked amazing. And you could see it was very rewarding to the people organizing it. It looked phenomenal. Yeah.
I have to agree on that. That also, I definitely had FOMO when I saw that, and I really thought, man, it's not so far away. Europe is well connected. Should I go or should I not? Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, kudos to Petros and the team of volunteers. They do an absolutely incredible job. And they, as you say, AJ, through what you see and experience, through what they share, there's just incredible passion for what they do, to bring people together, to help people learn and level up and, give themselves better career opportunities off the back of it. They they, incredible bunch of people, the volunteers there. So yeah, that's great stuff. Okay, it looks like it's time for us to move on to poll number 3. So we asked the community, what's most valuable in a community of practice? So some results coming in. We had 279 respondents on this one, and 9% shared that belonging is most valuable. 10% shared ideas, 19% shared relationships, and 62%, so a whopping 62%, shared learning and knowledge. So, AJ, in the south of England, what are your initial reactions to these results?
That sounds pretty much how I would answer if I was getting that poll. I think there is a crossover between ideas and learning and knowledge, because if you're learning something new and just seeing another person's perspective, what did they learn? What lessons have they brought into something else they're doing? What failures did they have, and how did they deal with that failure? What have they done after it? And what were the actions and learning from there? That can actually spark ideas. So it's not that someone has to come with an original idea. It could be, say, I had this idea, it didn't work, this is why. And that can spark ideation with large groups of people. Sometimes when you have these community practice sessions, there'll be a conversation that might happen a week later. Go, listen, I can't stop thinking about what Bob said. I really want to try that myself. Does anyone want to try it with me? Who wants to pair on this? Or has anyone done this before and they want to help me, but they didn't have the confidence to ask in that setting? So I think there's a lot of crossover with those subjects.
Yeah, there really is. And Mahati, I noticed that she's just shared a comment just saying, yeah, all of these, they can coexist with each other and feed into each other. Christine, what are your thoughts about the results?
I think AJ summarized that well, because I would have thought ideas would be on my top list, but yeah, in the end, they feeding into each other, because when I go out of these meetings, I always find out so many interesting things, like so many, this I never did that. Okay, how can I connect that? Like my brain is on fire after I go to a community of practice, and I don't even need to go. It's also my brain is on fire when I attend a podcast. After here today, I also will my brain be on fire, because it's just so many ideas sparking up. But in the end, it all goes into each other, and it's good that it all goes into each other, because these are all valuable things why we're doing this as a community. And I love the belongings. I would have also put it higher, because I just, like I said, sometimes you feel alone when and I worked so many times in startups when you're the only QA there, and just talking to other people who do the same things, have the same pain, or maybe want the same way of venting. I feel like I belong to them, and I feel like I have a little tribe, and that's nice.
Maybe to that point, maybe folks, well, with these results, folks come for the learning and knowledge, and eventually that sense of belonging is the outcome, and the relationships are built, and they're like sparking more ideas that perhaps they considered before they joined. Like we often see with the community at Ministry of Testing, folks will appear, they'll ask a question, a very specific question for a problem that needs solving, and then get an answer and then disappear for a bit. And that's cool. Totally expected with this type of community. And there are other folks who choose to go a lot kind of further with their connection to a wider community of practice, where they'll be like, oh yeah, you know what, I've got some things to share that I think other people would find useful. So perhaps I could write an article and get that published on Ministry of Testing. Maybe I could put myself forward to speak at one of the events that are happening, whether it's a meetup or whether a conference such as Test Bash. So there are various ways for people to contribute to a wider community of practice, and they can then bring what they're doing outside into their internal communities of practice, and also pull in folks from the outside community, such as Ministry of Testing, to say, oh, let's invite this person to come and do a talk, or let's watch this Test Bash talk from 2019 collectively as during our next community of practice session, and let's have a discussion about it. So it's great when that happens, because it then feeds further conversations, as you say, Christine. The fire, like the sparks, just happen, and it can lead to more questions. It can lead to more critical thinking. It can lead to more debate and discussion and great conversations. And the outcome for that, is a sense of belonging for a good number of people. I think often in the community world of community professionals, we talk about belonging as being the most important thing, and there's a group of us which kind of always share, well, people don't start at belonging, they want to learn or gain some sort of knowledge, or they have a problem that needs solving, and then for some they can get to the belonging stage. So yeah, I'm fascinated by those results, and it kind of I was pleased to see those results. If I'm being completely honest, as a community person, that it goes like that. So yeah. And have we spotted any further comments coming in from the community that AJ, perhaps you'd like to share if you're seeing anything else coming in?
There was one from Rachel H, where they've said the relationships you build expand the opportunity to gain the other three. Having relationships gives you an opportunity to discuss what you've learned and parlay it into understanding other perspectives, which then builds on that knowledge. So again, reflecting back, it's about how maybe one will cause and effect lead to the other, and there's like that full circle. That it's almost like iteration.
Yeah, it makes me think, AJ, like if we modeled, you know, a modern sprint approach or a number of releases a day, I'm trying to think of how you could then put that approach to how we can approach software development on top of communities of practice. And I think, that was mentioned a little bit earlier in this conversation, kind of releasing often and getting feedback and observing what's happening. And maybe that is possible with an internal community of practice through kind of weekly cadence or daily commentary on an asynchronous Slack channel, for example. It's all part of shipping often and learning collaboratively with each other and making adjustments. So it's not just like a big bang, oh my goodness, this is overwhelming, this is going to cause too much change or problems or challenges. We can do things in short, sharp ways. And that's not to rule out the big, bold stuff, because we can build up to that with these short releases. But I think that kind of sense of helping people find their way through short iterations, perhaps there's something in that.
I would say it's definitely something in it because we are not so good in long-term gratifications, more on short-term wins and doing this short-term and also being agile, iterating. We learn so much in software development, but applying that to so many other things in the world and also to community building just gives us a faster learning curve and just faster results and faster gratification as well.
Yeah, and sometimes the initial results can't happen straight away, and I've seen this with some community folks, or testing QA quality engineering professionals who want to build a community practice. They're like, oh, I've been doing this for 2 months and I'm not seeing results, and it's like, oh, it can take a year before you really get that sense that people are getting that light bulb moment of the value that they get from contributing, giving back, and then taking, giving back, and all of that stuff. And it just takes time, but building up in small increments, it adds up to the value that people will realize, and folks, I guess, realize that value at different times. It can be immediate for some people, and for others it's just like, I'm not getting it, why am I participating in this stuff? And then there'd be like a something that happens to that individual where they're like, I get it now, this makes sense why I've been doing this. I've been applying all this thing which I didn't realize, and it's come from these, the community of practice has helped me, which is very cool indeed. Okay, well, jumping on to our fourth and final poll for today, we asked the community, what barriers prevent you from actively contributing to the community? Now, at this stage, we've had 141 votes come in, or respondents, and yeah, bit of a mixed result. So let's go through this from lowest to highest number of responses. So 15% of respondents said it feels like a closed group. We had 22% of folks share that they were not sure what to discuss. 28% said they lack the confidence, and 35% of respondents shared that they don't know where to start. So, Christine in Berlin, what are your thoughts about this poll?
I get it. I think I've experienced all of these ones, and in the end, we come back to it is the responsibility of the host or of the community management as well, because communities can only thrive if you have a manager. It's just if you put a bunch of people just without anything in a room, it doesn't work. So we have to have this emails, we have to have, like I said, maybe a pre-intro before, or a body. You see that somebody new joined your community, write them an email, or like if it's real, like go to them afterwards and engage with them, because you don't know where to start. It's like you actually really don't know where to start. You don't know to which to go. That's why you can start. The easiest is, I find, join a newsletter or follow some people you like, because then at least you can see, okay, what are they doing? And maybe they're going to an event, then I go there, or also see the people you know or have met somewhere on the way. I believe where to start the easiest, and it's very biased, the Ministry of Testing, because there are so many advices. You guys make so many different formats, and you can just find the format you like and just try it out. It is, in the end, yes, a tryout. It's agile way, iterate, try it through. But I also understand that when you lack the confidence to go there, it's not easy. But that's why online meetings are a good start, where you can just listen. But then it needs a host or community behind that to reach out to these people and say, okay, what did you like? Or like sending polls, what you guys do as well. And when the more polls I'm doing, the more I'm invested in that as well. But I like the one, it feels like a closed group. Reminds me of high school, when you have like these different kind of groups for the baseball players, or the theater group or something. And yeah, it's very difficult to get into that, just because you have the same interest. You still feel like if you are the new kid on the block. So it is difficult to get through that, because it takes a lot of yourself. But then in the end, I still believe changing formats, having the intro sessions before, or sending surveys afterwards, or something that you feel you are already part of the community, even if you were just once there, hopefully, I believe, gives you the feeling that you are part of the community and you join doing more stuff.
That's great advice, Christine. AJ, I'd love to get your thoughts on this as well.
I think it ties back into accessibility again. Like, does it feel inaccessible? Is it on a tool or platform that that person doesn't want to use? They're not sure of Slack, they've never used it before, or Discord, or any of the other tools that people are using at the moment. Is it that they have accessibility needs and they can't interact? It doesn't work for them. There's streaming and community tools that don't have captions, for example, or doesn't work with their local technology. And then also, it depends how you frame the community or the group. Sometimes when you say, I'd say like Bobcat community group, they're like, oh, I don't have a Bobcat, I can't potentially take part, I've only got a tabby. It's about how you word it and frame it, and is it open to everyone? Have you said it's only for people who like BMWs or some other car brand? I think a lot of the framing and accessibility around it really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And you make such a good point there, AJ. It's really subtle. Words are very powerful, and it's really important to focus on the inclusivity of how you frame your community, and going to that level of a code of conduct and reminding people that they are welcome. And it's so important that we reiterate that point. And Christine, your idea about helping someone through like a buddy system, and kind of just so they have at least one person that they can connect with and go to if they're like, oh, what's the etiquette in this group, or like, how should I get involved, or what could I do? And just being a listening point for that individual can go a long way. And the good communities out there welcome folks in with open arms and say, come on, and like, get involved, and like you're going to add to the culture of this community. You don't, it's not a case of really fitting in. You're bringing another person's voice and experiences to the table, and that's a wonderful thing. Absolutely. And it's so important that we continue to remind folks of that, and that we also have things in place if you have a bad actor. And this can happen both in internal communities of practice and wider ones like Ministry of Testing. So we have stuff in place to make sure that people feel safe and protected. Okay, well, I am getting some information in from our production team, who are indicating that it's time for us to wrap up today's news section. Wow, it's been wonderful. So thank you so much to our reporters. This is Simon Tomes in Teddington signing off. AJ, if you'd like to do your sign off.
This is AJ in the south of England. I'm going to go and have my banana now. Good morning, everyone.
Wonderful. And Christine, over in Berlin.
I say this was a very good session. We went through a lot of good things, and I wish you all a wonderful week to go through.
Okay, folks. Well, please do come back to this again. Keep coming back to it. Listen out for the advice and the reflections that we shared today. Keep coming back to it. Do share it with your colleagues. Communities of practice are here to stay. They are there to help each other. So let's keep banging the drum for communities of practice. But we are signing off for today. Thank you, folks, wherever you may be. And please do join us for another episode of the Testing Planet News. It's bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.